using middleware. Express is a routing and middleware web framework that has minimal functionality of its own. An Express application is essentially a series of middleware function calls. Middleware functions are functions that have access to the request object, and we write it as a parentheses req, the response object res, and the next middleware function in the application's request response cycle. The next middleware function is commonly denoted by a variable name next, and we write middleware functions in JavaScript. For example, the name of the file will be middleware example.js. Okay, so we're gonna see examples of that later on. Middleware functions can perform the following tasks: execute any code, make changes to the request and the response objects, and the request response cycle, call the next middleware function in the stack. If the current middleware function does not end the request response cycle, it must call next to pass control to the next middleware function. Otherwise, the request will be left hanging. An Express application can use the following types of middleware, and you can jump around here with the links, but we have the application level middleware, we have the router level middleware, error handling middleware, built-in middleware, and finally the third-party middleware. You can load application level and router level middleware with an optional mount path. You can also load a series of middleware functions together which creates a substack of the middleware system at a mount point. I have an example here. We're gonna open, I have a folder here named API, so I'm gonna right click, open in terminal. I'm gonna type in code space that, so we're gonna open it in Visual Studio Code. So I have this empty folder named API. I'm gonna press Ctrl tilde so I can open the incorporated terminal. Okay, so we have that, and we're gonna be seeing first the application level middleware. So here we have the application level middleware. Bind application level middleware to an instance of the object of the app object by using the app.use and the app.method functions, where method is the HTTP method of the request that the middleware function handles, such as the get method, the put method, or the post method. We also have the delete method that is not present here, and lowercase. This example shows a middleware function with no mount path. The function is executed every time the app receives a request. So first of all, make sure that you install Express. So you do like this: npm install Express. And we covered this in previous videos in the playlist of Express. But first of all, you have to have installed Node.js, so you can use the npm package manager. So if you have Node.js installed, you can use the npm package manager, and you do npm install Express. And I already have it installed, so I'm gonna check out what version do I have. So I'm gonna type in Express space double hyphen and then version. So I'm gonna press enter, and yeah, I have the version 4.16.1, so that is that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my new file. I'm just gonna name it, I don't know, server.js. It's gonna be a JavaScript file. So I'm gonna type in const express, assign it, and we're gonna required open parentheses, and inside of the parentheses single quotes, and we're gonna require express. So we're gonna save it, and let me see, we have here, okay, so here they're giving us an example. It's gonna be like this: const express, and we're gonna require express. So it should be like this: require without that d at the end. We are gonna have const, so it's gonna be const app, and we are gonna assign it to express like this. Okay, so we have to put parentheses at the end. what else do we have here? So we initialize, we have this constant name app that we are initializing into express. So and the next line we can use, what else do we have here? We can use app.use. We're gonna open parentheses, and now we're gonna have an arrow function inside of the parentheses, and to the left of the arrow function we are gonna have this parentheses with the request, the response, and next. So we're gonna have a new parenthesis here. Outside of that we're gonna have the arrow function, and inside of this parenthesis we're gonna have three arguments: the request, res, and next, like that. So we're gonna have request, response, and next. Okay, so to the right of the arrow function we're gonna open curly braces, and what do we have here? We're gonna cancel that log, so it's gonna be, we're gonna cancel that log. We're gonna open parentheses, and we are cancel that log. Two parameters that is gonna be the string time. Okay, so it's gonna be like this: time, colon. Outside of the string we're gonna separate it by a comma, and the next parameter is gonna be date.now. This is a function, so we're gonna open parentheses. Okay, so outside of the console.log to line number 6 we're gonna call in, okay, and line number 6 we're gonna call in next, like this, and we open parentheses. Okay, so we have that, then we close the curly braces and we close the parentheses. So this is how you would do it, and later on we're gonna, this is the basics for creating a full stack application with Express, and we can use, for example, MongoDB as our database, and we can connect it with Mongoose, so we can have the database communicating with the backend. So now we're gonna see, this example shows a middleware function mounted on the /user/:id. The function is executed for any type of HTTP request on the /user::id path. So yeah, one other thing, when we're talking about middleware, we can just put left, for example, it would be middleware example, like this, example.js, and this is how you could write a file in middleware with a JavaScript extension. But we're not focusing on that, we're just gonna stack with the server.js. So here we have the app.use, and in this case, in the first case, as you can see here, we have the app.use, and we have the request, the response, next. Then we have the console.log, we have the time, and the date.time, and the date.now, and then we call it next. So now if we go to line 9, for example, this time we will have app.use, and this times we will instead of open an arrow function. Okay, so we're gonna have an arrow function again, but this time we're gonna have two parameters first to the left of the arrow function. So first parameter is gonna be a string, the second parameter is gonna be parentheses, and then we're gonna have the arrow function, and now a set of curly braces. So this is how it should look like. So we're gonna have the first parameter is gonna be a string, that string is gonna be a /user/:id, like this. So we separate it by the comma, and now in the parentheses we'll have the request, the response, and next. So we'll have request, response nx. So now we're gonna go into the curly braces, and inside of the curly braces we will have the console.log. It's gonna be like this, console.log. We're gonna open parentheses, and we're gonna have inside of the parentheses we're gonna have two parameters, a string separated, and then we'll have the request that method. Okay, so in the string we will have requested type, so requested type like this. Okay, so we end up with a column, and then we will have request that method. And as you can see, we have here, you can play around. It's gonna be method, so we're gonna go to m. Let me see, method, so it's gonna be this one. We can save it. And finally, outside of the console.log, so in line 11 we will have to call in next, and we do that with a parenthesis at the end. So this is how it will look like. So this is that. Now this example shows a route and its handler function middleware system. The function handles get requests to the /user/ calling ID path. So we're gonna keep moving here. So this is not dealing with an application for now, so we are just focusing on the general aspects of how using the middleware. So but now we can use the app.use or app.get. Okay, app.get, and get is a method. So we have different types of methods. The get method, in order to get information. We have the post method, in order to post, to create information. We have the put method, in order to update information. And we also have the delete method, in order to obviously delete the information. And we can work with Postman. It's a great service to dealing with HTTP methods. So but now we have the app.get, we have the parentheses, and again we have two arguments to the left of the arrow function. So it's gonna be, first it's gonna be a string, and then it's gonna be the request, response, and next, and then we're gonna have the arrow function, and to the right of the arrow function we're gonna have the curly braces. So this is the syntax, how it should look like. We have two parameters, the string and the parentheses. Inside of the parentheses we have the request, the response, and next, like this. And inside of the single quotes we're gonna have the user / calling ID. Okay, calling ID like this. And inside of the curly braces, we're gonna press enter, and now we're gonna have the res.send. So we're gonna be sending this information. We're gonna open parentheses, and we're gonna send in the user. Okay, so we have that. Okay, so what else do we have here? Okay, here is an example of loading a series of middleware functions at a mount point. With a mount path, it illustrates a middleware substack that prints request info for any type of HTTP request to the /user calling ID path. So let me see, we can get rid of this. Okay, so we can get rid of this. The important thing is to initialize express. So we have const express, and we require express. Now we have this constant app, and we initialize it to express. And from this point we can type in app.. In this example we're gonna use the method that is gonna be used. So once you type in that, you have all this method here. You have router, you have apply, bind, call. So we're gonna go for use. It's gonna be at the end. So we're gonna be having like this app.use. Okay, so we're gonna open parentheses, and again we're gonna have two arguments to the left of the arrow function. The first argument is gonna be a string. The second argument is gonna be the parentheses with the request, the response, and x. And to the right we're gonna have the arrow function, and to the right of the arrow function we're gonna have the curly braces. So in the single quotes we're gonna have the user slash colon ID. So now inside of the curly braces we're gonna cancel that load the request URL. Okay, so inside of the curly braces like this we're gonna have the cancel. Okay, cancel that log. We're gonna open parentheses. We're gonna have the first argument is gonna be request. No, it's gonna be user request URL. So request URL. So this is gonna be our first parameter here, and we're gonna separate it by a comma. Our second parameter is gonna be the request that, and in this case it's going to be original URL. So if you type rec or request req that original, as you can see we have it here, original URL. Okay, so outside of the parentheses, so we go to line 6, we're gonna call in next. We do that with a parentheses at the end. So that is that. And now we're gonna go just below of the final parentheses, just outside of the final curly brace. Let me control plus to make it a little bigger maybe. Okay, so outside of that, just outside of that, after the final curly brace we're gonna put a comma, and now we're gonna open a set of parentheses. Pretty much we're gonna have another arrow function. To the left of the arrow function is gonna have a parenthesis, and to the right is gonna be a curly brace, a set of curly brace. So in the left, in the parentheses, we're gonna have the request, the response, and next. And to the right, so in the curly braces we're gonna have again the cancel.log. So it's gonna be cancel. Okay, cancel.log. We're gonna open parentheses, and again we're gonna have the request type. It's gonna be like this, request type. Okay, request type, comma separated, and the next argument is gonna be the request that method, like this. Finally, outside of the cancel.log, we're gonna call in next with parentheses, and that will be the example. So these are basic demonstrations of how to use Express, how to use these methods. For example, the use method. Later on we're gonna see also how to use app.router. Okay, so now router handlers enable you to define multiple routers for a path. The example below defines two routes for get requests to the /user/colon-id path. The second route will not cause any problems, but it will never get called because the first route ends the request response cycle. The example shows a middleware substack that handles the get request to the /user/colon-id path. So we have this example. Now I'm gonna close this one. Okay, I'm gonna make it a little smaller, and I can just delete this part. And now we're gonna see this example app.get, and again I can use app.get because app is being initialized to Express, and I have already installed Express in my computer. So now we're gonna have, oops, let me see, what is this? So we're gonna have app.get. Okay, so we're gonna open parentheses, and again to the left of, we're gonna have the arrow function inside of the parentheses. We're gonna have the arrow function inside of the parentheses. So we're gonna have the first argument is gonna be the string, the second argument is gonna be the request response, and next we're gonna have the arrow function, and to the right is gonna be the curly braces with the cancel.log. So inside of the single quotes we're gonna have slash user is slash calling ID, like this, calling ID, and the parentheses we're gonna have the request, the response, and next. So in the to the right of the arrow function we're gonna have the curly braces, and now we're gonna have the cancel.log. Inside of this parentheses we're gonna have the ID here, ID calling. Okay, so we're separated by a comma, and the second argument is gonna be the request params that ID. So it's gonna be request that params that ID, and this is very important when we build a full stack application or just the backend, because with this ID we can use the HTTP method, put or delete. Put for updating the ID. So we will have for example, I don't know, URL slash API slash something, and then slash, and then the ID, whatever number, and that would be the ID. That would be a unique ID, and with the HTTP method put we can update it, and with the HTTP method delete we can delete it. So this is just a general overview. Later on we're gonna see full stacks applications later on. So now outside of that we're gonna calling next the function here, next, and now okay, so we're gonna have that, and now just after this curly brace, the final curly brace, I am in line 7, we're gonna put in a comma, and we're gonna have an arrow function. So it's gonna be a set of parentheses, the arrow function, and then a set of curly braces. Okay, so, and again we're gonna have in the parentheses we're gonna have the request, we're gonna have the response, and then we're gonna have next. And to the right in the curly brace we're gonna send the user info. So we're gonna rest that send, and we're gonna send it as a string, so user info, like this. So that would be that. Okay, now we're gonna have handler for the slash user slash calling ID, which prints the user ID. Okay, so below that we can use the app.get. Okay, so it's gonna be app.get. Okay, so we're gonna have the single quotes, we're gonna have the parentheses. So this is an arrow function. We will have the arrow function and the set of curly braces. Okay, so again inside of the single quote we will have a slash user slash calling ID, like this. We will have in the parentheses we will have the request, response, and then next. Inside of the curly braces we will have the rest.send, so it's gonna be rest.send, and we're gonna send in the request that params that ID. Okay, so this is how it should be done. Okay, so to skip the rest of the middleware functions from a router middleware stack called the next route. To pass control to the next route, note next inside of the parentheses inside of the single quotes we will have route will work only in middleware functions that were loaded by using the app.that method or routed.that method functions. So this example shows a middleware substack that handles the get request to the /user/calling ID path. So we're gonna go to our Visual Studio Code. I'm gonna delete all this stuff here. And now we're gonna have this example. So we're gonna have the app.get. It's gonna be app.get. And for example, if this constant, I would just name it, I don't know, whatever, and then I would initialize it to express, that would be whatever that get in this case, but and we just name it because it's relatable. It makes sense to name it app. Okay, so we're gonna have app.get. We're gonna open parentheses, single quotes, comma, parentheses. We're gonna have the arrow function and then open a set of curly braces. Okay, like this. Alright, so now we're gonna have /user/calling ID, like this. Now we're gonna have the request.response and then next. And inside of the curly braces we are gonna, in this case we're gonna use the if statement, if else statement, if else. So if the user ID is 0, skip to the next route. So okay, and in order to build a full stack application, you have to have you could do everything in one single file, like in this file named server, but it would be much more convenient to have a bunch of folders. For example, one folder would be named routes, that is specific for your routes, another folder for your controllers, another folder for your models, and so on and so forth. So but we are just gonna see this overview. So we're gonna see if the request that params that ID is equal to 0, so the triple equal sign means equality. So when it's just one equal sign, it means it's being assigned to, but in this case it's equality. If this is equal to 0, then next. Okay, so we're gonna type in here if, we're gonna open parentheses, request that params that ID is equal to 0, like this, is equal to 0. Outside of the parentheses we're gonna have a next with parentheses. Okay, so otherwise pass the control to the next middleware function and the stack, so else next. Okay, so we will have to go here and type in else and then call in the function next. Let me see if, okay, we call the function, but okay, if the user ID is 0, skip to the next route. So inside of the next parentheses we will have to pass in the route. So we will do it with single quotes, and then as you can see we have two choices, route, router, so it's gonna be route, like this. Okay, so that is that. Outside of this curly brace we will have a comma, and then we will have another function, another arrow function. So we will have the parentheses, the set of parentheses, the arrow function, and then curly braces. So this is the syntax. And as you know already, we're gonna have in the request, the response, and next. So and to the right we have the curly braces, and we're gonna have this time res.send, and it's gonna be regular. So it's gonna be res.send res.send, open parentheses, inside single quotes it will be regular, like this. Okay, so now, so send a regular response. In some cases, or in most of the cases, we're gonna be using res.let me see, send, oh wait a minute, JSON, and then we'll open parentheses and then type in a message, for example message, let me see, message, okay, and then colon and then something like this, but we're gonna see that later on, so we're gonna leave that. Now we have handler for the /user/calling ID path, which sends a special response. So okay, so it'll be the same. So we have the app.get. Inside of the parentheses we will have an arrow function, and to the left of the arrow function we will have the first argument is going to be in single quotes /user/calling ID. The next argument is going to be this parentheses with the request response. Next, to the right of the function we will have the curly braces that is going to be res.send, and it's going to be special inside of single quotes. Middleware can also be declared in any array for reusability. This example shows an array with a middleware substack that handles get requests to the /user/calling ID path. So we're gonna check this example, and we're gonna be having functions here. So this is where you will have, in a full stack application, if we are dealing with the backend using Express, we will have routes, and we will have a folder named routes with our route files. We will have a controllers, and the controllers are pretty much functions. So we will have a folder named controllers, and inside of that folder we will have our controller files like this using functions. So we're gonna check out this example. We're gonna delete this here, and again you could do everything in one single file, but it will be very messy. Okay, so now we're gonna type in function, and we're gonna have log, okay, log original, so it's gonna be log original like this. Okay, log original, we're gonna open curly braces, we're gonna have the request, we're gonna have the response, and we're gonna have next. Okay, so we're gonna open curly braces, and now we're gonna have the console.log, and we're gonna have two parameters. Okay, the first parameter is gonna be single quotes, and the second parameter is gonna be the request that original URL. So it's gonna be original URL like this, original URL. Okay, and here we will have the request URL, so it's going to be request URL. Okay, so that will be our first function. We end up to the next line, so in line 6 we will call in next, and again don't forget to put in the parentheses. So the next function, okay, let's just type them. So we'll have again function, and the name it will be log method, and as you can see we are using camel notation. So we're using camel notation, log method, and again inside of the parentheses we're gonna have the request, the response, and next. Inside of the curly braces we're gonna have the console, console.log. Inside of the parentheses we're gonna have, this case is gonna be a request type. Okay, so it's gonna be inside of single quotes, it's gonna be request type like this, request type, and the next parameter is gonna be request that method like this. Oops, it should be like that. Request that method. Okay, and finally to the next line we will call in next. Okay, so and finally the final function, it will be this constant log stuff. So we will have const log stuff like this, log stuff, and we are gonna assign it. As you can see, I'm using one single equal sign. It will have, if I would do like this, 3 equal sign, that would mean equality. That means saying the constant log stuff is equal to, and is equal to what? Well, it's equal to the constant log stuff. So like this, but we're not looking to do that. So now we're gonna open a set of brackets, and we are gonna have the log original URL. So log original URL, as you can see. Okay, original, let me see, original URL. Okay, so the next array is gonna be the log method. And okay, outside of that, what else? Outside of that, we're gonna be using the app.get. We're gonna be using the get method. We're gonna open parentheses. Inside of the parentheses, we're gonna have the arrow function, and to the left of the arrow we're gonna have 3 parameters: the single quotes, the log stuff, and the parentheses with the request, response, and next. So we will have the single quotes, we will have the log, what is that, log stuff. Let me see, log stuff like this, and we're gonna have the parentheses with the request, response object, and then the arrow function, and finally the set of curly braces. So this is how it should look like. This is the syntax. So inside of the single quotes we will have the user / calling ID like this. We will have the log stuff as the second parameter, and the third parameter will have the request, response, and next, like that. Inside of the curly braces to the right of the arrow function, we're gonna have that res.send, and we're gonna send in user info. So it's gonna be res.send, open parenthesis, single quote, user info, like this, and we can save it. So this is how we would do it.